We are live.
We're live, great, welcome. I'm Commissioner Myers here. We're getting our Legislative Review Committee, LRC, getting started today on Thursday, August 6th. We have Commissioner Wright and Culpepper with us right now. And we are gonna get started now with the approval of the Thursday, April 2nd, 2026 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we've gotten there. We have no public input because there's no public input. So we're going on to the commission identified item of interest, which was assigned to the LRC on May 5th, which is examining a modification of the definition of family and properties that feature a homestead exemption. And so I'm going to turn that over to our someone from our manager's office and to move us forward here.
All right, so what I thought we might do is start with our teammates in the attorney's office to share what the ordinance says currently. And you've got that, it's page 2 and 3 of your packet. Oh, good, it's up on the screen.
Yeah, I'll share. Oh,
Okay.
Oh.
sorry. I'm just gonna share for the public.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'll let code enforcement speak to some of the enforcement.
Yeah, we'll talk
aspect of this, but from high level overview, the definition of family ordinance, that's codified in section 91518, is a zoning ordinance. And it makes it unlawful for any homeowner to have more than 2 unrelated individuals residing in a single dwelling unit. The definition of family is defined in that code section. It's currently on the screen. It's a very long definition. But I think one thing I would highlight is that the residency component of this is defined to mean essentially residing on the property within 30 days within a 90-day period. That is how we would prove that someone resides in a single dwelling unit. And this is applicable to the RS zones, all single family residential zones, and specifically to the AR neighborhood. So not all AR zones, but just AR neighborhood as that term is defined in the zoning ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have before we move to enforcement.
I think it's good that it's consistent with, since, what was the date that this came out? I mean, I know this is the current version of it, but do we know, like, when?
2001?
Okay.
2001 is when,
2001.
like it's been on the books for quite a while.
Yeah, is that the short-term rental is the 30 days and less, so it's great that
Correct.
we're aligned. Probably not coincidental, but. Because I was about to say.
Great observation. Yeah.
Because the reality is who's a short-term visitor, that would be a visitor versus a
That's right.
resident.
That's right. You look at
And that, you probably deal with that
absolutely.
clarification. Wow.
And it's the second, it's B where we get the restriction.
That's right.
Where it says it shall be unlawful for the occupants to have more than 2 unrelated individuals. Okay. Yes, good.
Jack, do you want to share a little bit about code enforcement's process? And then after you kind of share like how you handle things now and talk through a little bit the list of violations that we've had in the last few years.
Sure. Okay, so whenever we receive a complaint, we go by doing an inspection. We verify whether or not we run the tags on the vehicles, verify whether or not they're registered and where they're registered to. We do a lot of background before we even try to approach the property. We have to see if we have probable cause to go onto the property or to question the tenants. Probable cause will be more than a mere suspicion of a violation. Or if there's another violation present, that gives us access to knock on the door and speak to the tenants. Once we speak to the tenants, we try to get, we ask questions whether or not, about how they're related or not. Depending on what the answers are, we use that information. We can either give them a notice if they confirm, if they admit to being in violation of the ordinance, or we can give them a notice of noncompliance.
Do you go based on complaints or you go Or you just patrol?
For definition of family, it's mostly based on complaints, because it's hard to see.
Yeah.
But that's consistent on our ordinance. I mean, there's a good bit of what we have on the books is
Complete.
complaint.
Complaint driven.
Period, whether it's residential parking, hang tags to, just, no.
We do get a lot of complaints, about, advertisements for definition of family. However, with advertisements, it's not about in violation at that time. Whenever we do get those complaints though, if the advertisement specifically says that they're advertising for more than two unrelated, then we'll go ahead and send them a letter because they're trying to violate the ordinance, but it's not at that time, if that makes sense.
So that's,
Like warning
that would
Yes.
be that would be educational outreach.
Yes.
Opportunity.
Mhm.
Because, and then, is that also complaint driven? Or do you look for advertisements?
It's complaint driven.
Okay, so that's when a neighbor calls and says, the sign across the street says 5 bedrooms, 4 baths.
Exactly.
I know it's about to happen here,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, but at that time, it's not in violation, and even after the students move, students, after the individuals move in, we still have to prove that they're living there 30 out of 90 days. So,
So, I mean, obviously, there's lots of complaints that we don't enforce this. And that it's not enforceable. So where are the problems that you run into with enforcing it?
Hey, before you respond, you mind if I just bring up something really quickly? Because I think it kind of is germane to Commissioner Myers' question.
Okay.
There is a provision in state law that actually prohibits the local government from doing inspections of residential rental property unless we had probable cause of a violation. And so practically what that means, and I'll let Jack kind of speak to this as well, before our code enforcement officers can go start knocking on doors, asking questions, they have to have independent probable cause of a code violation, whether that is parking violations, trash, noise, something like that. The General Assembly has actually legislated and said local governments, you cannot do an investigation unless you have probable cause.
And that is in their SOP, still, you have that already.
Right, and that also relates to, let's see, what some of the other things we discussed in this room, and the overgrown yard.
yeah, any violation that we find, that gives us cause to be able to question the tenant. Because when we leave the notices for the violation that we find, then we can ask further questions.
Yeah, and then because this has to do with people, not the ivy growing up, whatever we decided that look. Since it's people, you have to address it to a person. You can't just leave a piece of paper,
We can,
right? You have to,
we can leave the notice on the property. It doesn't have to be, is that what you're asking? We don't have to
Yeah.
give it personally to the
Okay.
tenant.
so you can leave a notice that
Yep.
this has been observed.
Yes, leave a notice or we can mail it, however, the easiest way to get in contact with the property owners, that's what we do.
So the notice goes to the property owner, not the.
We
actual-
initially we give it to the tenants, and then we determine whether or not they knew that they were violating the ordinance, or if the property owner allowed them to move and gave them separate leases and things like that. If we find that's the case, then we go after the property.
Carol, I had one in my district, John, you might, might be news to you as well, but it was early on in me being a commissioner, and this young man was just crying, literally on the phone. We just got a notice that we've got to evacuate, because there's 4 of us that live here. And he goes, we're not doing anything wrong, can you fix this, can you let us, and then obviously we want compliance, but the kind part was, they said at the end of the semester, we have to move out. So it wasn't like tomorrow. It was time to, he said, you did not do anything wrong. It was your landlord.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so the part is they're the victim, basically, and the person doing the wrong or thinking they're above it being caught is the property owner.
Absolutely.
And then, but do you reach out to the property owner and ask them, like, so you knock on a door, let's say nobody, but we are not answering that door, we're not answering the questions. And then what is and I might be getting ahead of what you're telling us, what happens in a discussion with a property owner?
with the property owner, we try to get more information from them as well, whether or not the tenants are related. If they admit to it, like same thing, we would issue them a notice and or a citation depending on the situation. If they don't admit to it, then we have to do the background work, to try to confirm the violation, prove the violation is there. If the evidence isn't there, it's just the case in a lot of these, because it's hard to prove whether people are related or not. If the evidence isn't there, then we have to close the case on time.
Yeah. We had one on our street and they're like, we're sisters. I said, sorority, that's not good. But they were like, no, seriously. I mean, we are, we overlap. It was a house and there were three sisters that and then eat for a pretty long period of time at UGA. There were two sisters there. But I also saw the Greek letters too.
Do you have a lot of those complaints?
I've checked for the last 5 years, we got 83 complaints.
That's it.
Yeah,
If you flip to the last two
Page,
pages,
right.
Okay.
there's some data about, no, you're great.
Perfect
You're,
segue.
yeah, it's a perfect
Yeah.
segue.
We got 83 complaints, 58 of them were unfounded. 19 were resolved through voluntary compliance, and we issued 5 citations.
These numbers, and John might be having the same reaction, seeing with the number, the way it's talked about
Mhm.
in social media, whatever.
Mhm.
One would think that there would be a lot more complaints. And I just went back to look to see if there was like a whole lot more in 2022. I mean, did people make a lot, maybe they made a whole lot more in 2010 and they've given up
Mhm.
or something or other. So can you explain, let's say, all the unfounded, like what happens in the unfounded situation? What are you finding in the unfounded situation?
There are a lot of different variables. Either we didn't find probable cause to approach the property owners, there were no other violations. Nobody answered the door. We monitor the property. We have to monitor the properties quite a bit to try to confirm that there are 30 out of 90 days. After we monitor the properties, we're looking at vehicles. There was just not enough evidence there to pursue a case.
The peak weekend visitors
Mhm.
kind of throws it off, right? I mean, it's almost like you have to be, again, following the 30 days out of 90. And so you've got potentially a 90-day surveillance
Absolutely.
on something. Okay, let's do the math on that one, Carol. 58 times 90 days. I mean, it's a lot of time.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah, but I would imagine, and are they, and I might have missed this back in the ordinance, it has to be more than 30 days. So you could, if you're doing the 90 days, like people going away for weekends doesn't matter if you add up the.
No, that doesn't. If they're there for longer than 30 days, then they'd be in violation of the ordinance.
And are you mostly getting that by, cars then?
Yes.
So that's a limitation as
Mhm,
well, right?
absolutely.
So you're not there with them.
Tucking them in at night.
Have the standard. We do.
Thanks.
Or cameras looking at it, so that, do you accept any, what's our phrase, probable cause? Can neighbors provide any evidence of probable cause?
Yes, neighbors can provide evidence of probable cause. They can also testify if they agree to testify. If we need them, if we can't find the evidence on our own, they can agree to testify. We can use that in court.
What kind of evidence can they provide?
Picture of them.
Maybe they talk to someone and they admitted that they're not related, we could use that. They could testify to that.
Okay.
And then the citation, let's get into that. What
Mhm.
is it? How did those go? The 5 citations, just,
I believe all of them, we had enough evidence and all of them were found guilty and there were fines associated with those.
Did they have to move out? Never mind.
They did have to move out. When they moved out, it might have been at the end of the semester or something like that. I can't say for each case, but yeah, they did have to meet compliance before the violation was closed.
right.
That's amazing. that they
And then a
should dispute.
citation,
It's crazy.
what is the citation fine? I mean, I think the having to find a new place to live is very punitive. But the citation,
You may recall from our, law and noise ordinance discussion.
yeah.
That it's up to $1,000 and up to 6 months in jail or a combination of that. That's really ultimately up to the municipal court judge.
Back to.
It's
what
the
you said,
same one,
that's-
yeah, almost the same one.
And the citation goes to the individuals who are living there, not to the owner of the house?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes it's the tenant, sometimes it's the owner. If the tenants are aware of the ordinance and the owner didn't say, for instance, the owner leased the property to two people and then more move in, those
Right.
individuals knew that they were violating and the owner didn't know that they moved in, so we would.
Oh, right, so you always have that, obviously, that's part of the,
Mhm.
Well, like the example I gave you, that guy was very clear. He goes, we all four signed the lease,
right.
you know, and so then when you have that kind of,
Mhm.
they're pleading with you for this not to happen. They've got the lease, 4 signatures on it. That
Mhm.
proves that the property owner was,
Absolutely. In that case,
they not, that they might not have been aware, but they were involved.
absolutely. In that situation, we would go after the property owner.
And by the way, that house was for sale after that.
Do we have any local, and ordinance regulations that require when you're renting a house,
Mm.
that you include this information about the family and no more than 2 unrelated?
I don't believe there's any ordinances on the book, for that, but I think it'd be a great idea.
Okay.
I think that the process and the ability to share these incidents, like, even though there were only 5 citations and people having to relocate, I bet it went far and wide as far as people saying, you won't believe what happened to us. You gotta watch out. I don't know how much of it is
But compared to
shared enough to.
right, but compared to like the number of, when we were looking at short-term rentals and the long lists of non-conforming, this list seems very short compared to this is a topic of conversation in Athens-Clarke County. In terms of people getting frustrated about this, so I'm just comment.
So the charge from the mayor, Carol.
Yes, the charge from the mayor back
I was like, what's the charge?
Supposed to, how are we
Well,
supposed to help?
I think the attorneys were going to address the charge.
Yes, so thinking back to the charge, so the actual charge language is examine a modification of the definition of family properties in properties that feature a homestead exemption.
Oh, that's the key.
So you just heard from Jack how complex it is to enforce. You heard a little bit from Austin that there's nuance here and related to what state law allows us to even do from an enforcement standpoint to even determine probable cause to truly investigate it. So there already is a lot of complexity here related to enforcement. Over the break, staff kind of touched base a little bit. I know our attorney sent out a confidential memo to y'all with some guidance, but Austin, Courtney, did y'all want to share a little bit more related to the actual charge here and maybe, concerns or challenges as we see it?
I think the theme of this week and last week is the dormant commerce laws. So I apologize for all the lengthy communications with the attorney's office, but I would definitely rely on that confidential document. But I think a couple of things to note, when we're basing something, or specifically, if we're basing a regulatory benefit off of a homestead exemption, you're effectively introducing a residency requirement into the ordinance. And that's
Regulatory benefit.
regulatory benefit
So you have a special, when you give somebody a something special
based on their.
because of the homestead exemption, that's just not fair.
Because under Georgia law, the only way to get a homestead exemption is if you reside on the
So
property.
basically, you're, it's an additional benefit
If,
because of home ownership, which,
Or because you're a Georgia resident as
Yeah.
opposed to an Athens
let's think of it that way.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
better way of thinking of it.
But,
Yeah, and that's what, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I'll wait. I'm bad about interrupting, I'm sorry.
And thank you, Courtney, for that, because that presents an issue under the Dormant Commerce Clause when you start treating in-state residents differently from out-of-state residents in a way that benefits people who live in-state versus.
What's that called, the dormant?
The Dormant Commerce Clause,
Yeah,
and that is a provision of the US Constitution.
Yeah, we won't mess with that. Okay.
but if you don't mention, yeah, John, there you go.
So if we change the homestead and people that were renting a house, they don't own it, but they're renting it for their family. So we're looking at a homestead exemption. That's I mean, that's picking on, I mean, we're talking about affordable housing, then you've got a problem. We're not gonna let people that don't own the house have a family there? And my other question was this charge done with anticipation of the ADU thing passing?
Oh, sure.
Because the ADU thing did not pass, so is this a waste of time?
I think it may be a waste of time, that's what we can decide, but I think it's also, without asking the attorneys to say anything, looking at the short-term rental. So that we have, which is a difference, which seems similar on the surface in that we have a home occupation rule that differs from a non-home occupation. So we have a home occupation thing that allows me to, I could be Airbnb-ing 2 of the bedrooms in my house to 2 different people, which differs, which would be violating the family ordinance without the days thing. Let's forget the days things. Let's say I do it all year long, but I could be having 2 other people in there the whole time, but I couldn't rent out 2 rooms to people who were unrelated, who were graduate students who stayed there. So I could have a short-term rental in my home, but I couldn't have 2 graduate students renting there who were not related, who were not sisters. So you see what I mean there? So to me, we've seen an inconsistency there. But that's, I don't know if that might be in our confidential memos and addressing that. I don't know. if
I
we
can speak to the short-term rental aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because there are, in your language, they do appear similar.
Yeah.
But just remember, the short-term rental ordinance that the mayor commission adopted, does authorize home occupation short-term rentals. And the key there is that you can, obtain a home occupation STR permit if you are the owner occupant. So if you got a homestead exemption, or if you're the primary resident of that particular.
You're the leasehold.
Right, so you don't, in other words, you don't have to own the property in order to have a home occupation STR.
Yeah, so if we made it only, I mean, that allows somebody not from Georgia to also have that
Right.
privilege or opportunity.
Yes.
So that allows both to have
Both
the
have it.
opportunity.
And if you had,
That's the difference.
that's the
Right.
difference. And if you had it with those 4 young men, let's say the 2 young men rented the house, they could, with permission of the owner, whatever, but they could short-term rental the other 2 rooms. Let's forget about who they're short-term rental with them, or they're breaking the rules on that. But they could have different people in there every 30 days and short-term rental, and that would be legal now if they got the home occupation.
That's correct.
Right, so, and
And
that's.
permission of the owner.
And permission of the owner, right, but, once you did that with long-term rentals, you're basically changing, I mean, there'd be no, you no longer have this 2 unrelated people, because that would allow everyone to do that.
So
Unless we want to go against this, the regulatory benefit, and basically you're saying that you cannot make rules about how a house or home or residence could be used that limit it to the type of home and homestead versus non-homestead.
Essentially, yeah, you can't give someone a benefit, whether that's in the housing context or.
Right.
Or whatever.
We couldn't say, people who have a homestead exemption can have the bakery and the head.
cheaper garbage rate.
Right,
Not
right.
fair,
Great.
not fair.
Yeah, cheaper garbage rate or something like that, or businesses, like it's okay. if you-
Right.
Well,
The courts treat that as discrimination against interstate commerce.
yeah,
That's why we
and
get-
so that's where a lot of, back to all the public input the other night, a lot of people were saying that if somebody is, the landlord, the owner of the property lives there, they should be able to have a tenant in the backyard ADU. That is not something that was easy to explain, to say, well, in my mind, it was not feasible to regulate.
But you could do that, you can have that, I could have the ADU, because it's only, it's only me, and it's only two unrelated people, so,
Yeah,
I mean, that problem
yeah,
is
but you
having.
can't have a room, yeah.
I couldn't,
what I'm
right,
getting at.
to say,
You
yeah,
can't, anybody can do that. You can't say that only somebody with a
Right,
homestead
right,
exemption
right.
gets that privilege
right,
to have an ADU with an oven in the back or something.
right.
So it,
Oh, the other question of the ADUs, yeah.
see,
Yeah.
it was brought up several times that people thought that would be the way to regulate it, but yet at higher levels, you can't regulate a benefit to you because you own the house,
Right.
and somebody else doesn't get that benefit because they're
Mhm.
resident or don't own.
Right, so that's one thing
So
that
this-
might not have been possible if it went back, had gone back.
Yeah,
or
so
petition.
I'm trying to understand if the definition of family, did you guys see that there was any improvements that we needed to make? I don't know what here on C, I don't know what a maternity supportive housing residence is,
Oh.
but all of this is current.
Yeah, I think the only thing, I mean, actually back to the definition of family, the feature of I mean, I don't think any of this applies to what was signed by the mayor was to focus on the homestead exemption, which is not according to what we're seeing a possibility, because it would be a regulatory benefit to one entity over another entity.
And so the definition of family part, examine a modification of the definition of family is not necessarily what we're supposed to be doing.
Right,
It's in reference, it's
in properties. that
specifically
feature-
for the homestead
Yeah,
exemption.
yeah. I mean, unless there was a desire on this part of the commission here to ask the mayor for that, but this is what the limit of the question is here.
Right.
It didn't stop at examine and modify. There was not a period after definition of family or and.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So, I mean, it's always an option for the committee decides that you would like to see a different form of this topic. You could always, through the chair, ask for the chair to go back to the mayor to consider assigning a different charge.
Well, and I think in May, when this was assigned, or even before, whatever was going on then, I've learned more about this because of the ADU discussion. I think that we've been through different examples of how this, so I make a motion, we pass it out without action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
Next assignment,
Up next, we have to pursue the recommendation of the Solid Waste Advisory Commission to ban plastic bags at point of sale. So this is coming forward. Originally, it was in the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. They had submitted a recommendation related to a plastic bag ban. And so it's coming to y'all in committee. So there's still more to come on that. We weren't really prepared to talk about that today because it is such a meaty topic, and we didn't know how far we would get on this one. But we do intend to bring that forward at the next meeting.
So they're wanting to ban people selling plastic bags.
well, they're being given out. They're not really
So
sold.
like you go to Kroger and
At point of sale, so stores.
Point of sale.
And maybe the question when you bring it back is, and whether or not this is even something where it's banning the plastic sales, can you differentiate between making them available without a charge versus making them available with a charge? Like you have in some of the places where it's an extra 5 cents or something.
Yes.
Um,
Good old oldies,
Yeah,
you know, They
do that. Well, you know, you
The
gotta
current
be, yeah,
example.
right, example of that.
Okay.
And I think
even
that
have
was,
to have a quarter to use it for that.
well, if you wait at the right place, there's always a someone leaving next door. You know?
Play it right.
Right.
Lucky.
I know, but you have to have the quarter.
Yeah, you have to make sure, yeah, make sure that,
I remember before the pandemic, this was a topic that we were so concerned about. And there's been so many things since then.
Well, and I will say, so y'all are gonna hear in your work session on Tuesday, you're gonna hear from, Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful in our solid waste department related to our litter index. And
okay,
we do see plastic bags come up in our litter index, so you'll hear a little bit about that before we have our next committee
well, that's
meeting.
good.
Just to give you a little bit extra frame of reference, even though I know Commissioner Wright, you're on.
Yeah, we met yesterday and they were
Mhm.
talking up how, in the details of it, but it's, every time I walk, I don't even have to take a bag, collect trash. I pull up almost every time, come back with it full.
All right,
And yeah, Mayor Denson was not in favor of this topic coming forward.
Well, I will share Commissioner Davenport, it sits on the Solid Waste Advisory Commission as well, and so he was there when this was being recommended, so he probably also share some context. Before or after.
okay.
I'd wanted styrofoam to be added with it at the same time, but that's one thing at a time.
Looks like there's only two municipalities in Georgia, South Fulton and Clarkston are the only ones in the state.
But they do exist.
Only two of them. There's only 200 in the, across the country.
I think some of them are statewide.
Well, there's some states, so California, New York, New Jersey, and Washington.
I remember thinking if New York could do it, we could do it.
Oh.
Yeah, like,
So your next meeting, if y'all keep your typical cadence, first Thursday in September is September 3rd. That is at 1 o'clock here in City Hall 301B. Is that,
And that's the Thursday before Labor Day weekend, in case that makes a difference for you.
Thursday,
September
Third.
3rd is your
Yeah.
first Thursday?
wait a second, we have a
That's
rainy
in the
district on the next day.
Yeah.
The day,
okay.
and
Does that
that
take still
weekend,
be?
is-
Yeah.
Labor Day.
Okay.
when's the first Georgia game? That
That
fifth?
weekend.
Fifth?
Woo-hoo. All right, motion to adjourn.
We're fishing
And do you
today.
want to do that?
Second, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.